Welcome to episode 2 of the Huddle House. Welcome, gentlemen. Wanted to get on here this Tuesday night and try to get another episode out for you guys because we finally have our first full week of football action back. So, who better to have on this week than the man himself, the trophy for on the weekly report, Chris Traenkner.
Got a
What's
crown.
up, guys?
He's done it. He is gone full Philadelphia 76ers and went full trust the process. And he's established a thorough formula this offseason to make a team that I think he can really be proud of. And I'm as we said a few weeks ago, Ty, on the show, I think we're pretty proud of Chris's offseason. So Chris, give us a little intro as to your emotions, your thoughts this week going into the games, and then just kind of seeing how your team performed.
The 1 o'clock games, Kraken started a little slow. I mean, I thought it was low scoring. I had a decent jump start on Thursday's game with Montgomery, who's no longer on my roster, but it happens. And then the 4 o'clock games really took off for me. I had some decent output from my team there. Kyle Pitts finally got more than 2 points, so that was fire. Not by much, but a little help from him. As Russell Wilson got at least as projected, so we'll take that from him. And then it's been a while since I've had to sweat out a Monday Night Football game, so that was really fun to actually be interested in the game, for fantasy wise, and not just as a fan. It came down to literally the last catch that Diggs caught with 20 seconds left on the clock. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put in the chat, I'm sure you saw it because we saw what followed it, but I was like, we actually have a tie game. Like, I was like, how crazy would be if you guys actually got the exact same decimal point and everything? Like, that would have been insane. And then, as soon as I sent it, 30 seconds later, Diggs caught his next pass. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But,
Decimal. That was crazy.
yeah. I was like, we got a direct tie.
Had to be an exciting win, and yeah, to get highest scoring in the week one is always a good precedent to set. I think just all in all, week one, it was kind of an odd range of outcomes in the league, though. There was a lot of low scores. Nobody really blew up. When you look at it in the grand scheme. So I think the entire NFL started off a little slow outside of Tua and that Dolphins Chargers game. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like last season was even a little bit like this, compared to the season before in terms of just the points totals. I remember the first season in our dynasty league, we had so many finishes every few weeks. There was a new team that scored 145, 150. It felt like last year it was a lot harder to even get to 100. It's just I don't know what changed, but it seems like the defenses just started kind of catching up to some of these skill position players, and I think we saw a little more of the same this week with I say more people scoring in single digits that were supposed to score double digits than vice versa. So, definitely a lot of underperformers.
Yeah, underperforming, probably the name of the game. I think nothing really made me laugh as much as Jordan sending the screenshot of Jake's sleep position. Said someone make this a poster. That was funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I guess we can just bounce around and share any observations we had, like biggest surprises from this week one reaction wise. How about you, Matt? Did you have anything that really jumped out at you as surprising in the league?
In the league, I say we probably just go matchup by matchup. But in terms of as a grand whole or grand scale of things, yeah, I think what you kind of mentioned is the fact that our highest score was 116, which is don't get me wrong, that's a solid week. But I think compared to what I think usually there was always one team every week that was scoring 130, 140. So there being a week one where it was just everyone was having trouble even getting to 100, it just felt kind of overall a little bit less explosive. So I mean, Chris and Jeremy had a matchup for the ages, but outside of that, there were some guys that squeaked out with some clunker wins. You don't you have a lot of wins in the 90s, which is just not common, Usually there's usually one of the two teams getting in the hundreds. So, yeah, I think that was probably the main observation.
Yeah, some clunky ones, I guess, is a good way to put it. Where would you start off? What was the clunkiest looking score in here?
Let's start off with Carter and Caleb.
Yeah, Carter and Caleb.
Yeah, because I think that was the lowest. Actually, no, Mitri and James was the lowest scoring win. But we'll do Carter and Caleb anyway, and then we'll move on to that one. But yeah, so Carter was able to escape a minor comeback from Caleb and the squad he's put together. He definitely was carried heavy by Tua, to kind of keep it competitive and his kicker. Um, but Carter was able to score 95 points and win. It's like, he got a good game from Tony Pollard. Deshaun ended up putting together a decent overall score. And Olave did what he's usually going to do, but he didn't get a whole lot out of Saquon. He didn't get a whole lot. He really got nothing out of Sky Moore. And then obviously his defense scoring -1 didn't help a whole lot either. So, yeah, just overall kind of probably an uninspiring week for both of them. But Carter, at the end of the day, a win's a win, and he escapes with an opening weekend win.
Yeah, I mean 95 is, it's average, it's not spectacular, certainly not a bad week, but yeah, like you said, it's not something you can always bank on to win every time because you do see quite a range of outcomes there. Like Sky Moore, really, that was disappointing because of how, I mean, the guy was, running a ton of routes and wasn't able to come up with much. And then yeah, the Giants just kind of throw that whole game out because of how bad it was. But Pollard looked like a really good player. And then on Caleb's side, it's so funny seeing the Cowboys with 35, nearly half of all his total points just sitting on his bench down there. Funny.
Yeah, he would have won if he'd started them.
Indeed. Yeah.
What you think? What you thinking, Chris? What's your any opinions on this matchup? This exciting barn burner?
Uh, no, for me, I have a different, outlook on team scoring in the high 90s, even 80s, because I think last year I averaged like 67 points a game. So
Yeah, you did
I
about
can't really,
solid 50 points better this week.
yeah, I know. So, I mean, yeah, Caleb, if he would have started Dallas, different game, but I think in his mind he's like, oh, I should have started him, but at the same time he's happy he didn't because this is what he wants.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Caleb is perfectly satisfied with the outcome of this game. So there's definitely no love lost or no hard feelings for him going down in this one. I'm sure he's probably expecting a lot of that this season.
One
So
thing I'll say, if you're Carter, I think you got to be pleased with what you saw from Deshaun Watson. I mean, he still had very rusty moments as a passer, but the way he was able to use his legs and move the ball on the ground. I mean, he had 40 rushing yards and a touchdown. Like if he's going to be able to consistently provide that, that's going to be a big boost to his game. That I don't know if you were banking on ahead of this. So nice development for him there. Opposite could probably be said with Cam Akers, who had 22 carries for 29 yards.
I was with Carter watching the 425 games, and he was getting so mad. Every time Cam got a carry, it was like 0 yard gain almost every time.
So that was a little bewildering, but he squeaks out with a win, goes to one. Um, I think we
Yeah.
should just talk about ours, Matt, because I don't know if we should need to delay it anymore.
Okay.
Uh,
That's good.
just man, that was a frustrating. Everything about Sunday was frustrating, really. Um, all football, but this certainly was. Especially whenever like the guy you go and trade for is also one of your favorite players, just fat goose egg in his debut for your team.
Yeah.
That was disappointing. And I was traveling Sunday, so I could only listen to it on the radio, and I kept hearing him like say T. Higgins all the time. And I was like, man, he's just not catching anything. And
Yeah.
the whole game was just so bad. But really, the whole week was kind of like screwy with Travis Kelsey being out and getting injured on that Monday. That really hurts. And so, I mean, like I'm looking at my team and I'm bummed because it's a loss, but 78 points when I got like effectively zero from T. Higgins and Travis Kelsey. Like I would like to think that, if I had those two in there in a normal game, it could have equated to some combination of 20. And then I'm sitting around 100, which is, makes me feel a little bit better because I feel like I was just on the downside of a week there. So I'm bummed. It sucks to be 0-1, but I'm trying not to let myself be too discouraged because of the rest of the team. I got to see it through. You can't overreact to week one.
Yeah. Week one's always a little funky. There's always a few people that blow up and do great that don't do much the rest of the season. And there's always a few guys that, you come in with the highest of expectations for that come out slow and rusty and suck, and then end up having great seasons. So, definitely definitely nothing to hang your hat on or think that the system's not working. It was just kind of a tough week overall without Kelsey, and T. Higgins isn't going to score 0 again, so just kind of a tough break. What?
That's a knock on wood. I honestly felt good after Thursday night when Mahomes only had 19 and Pacheco only had 7. I was like, wow, it kind of came out unscathed there. I thought that was like underperforming for both of those guys. So I felt good about the way the week was starting off on Thursday for us. Uh,
Yeah,
what really broke me was Michael Pittman going for 11 and 97 and a touchdown. I was like, dang, that was a good game. I wasn't expecting Anthony Richardson to play as well as he did. And
yeah, he looked great.
so that one,
I would say that I would say that's probably the greatest takeaway from my week for my team. I mean, obviously, I have a really sad taste in my mouth about the whole J.K. Dobbins news. That made it really impossible to enjoy this win. Like honestly, I mean, I'm glad we won and 0, but it's just kind of like it's very hard to feel like it was a winning Sunday for me. Whenever not only is he out for the season, but there's obviously major question marks now around his overall future in the NFL and where he'll ever play and what his role will be. It's going to be very very hard to come back from this, and his value is pretty much shot. Other than the offer that I technically had on the table from Chris.
Accept him offer, man.
what was
What?
okay? Let's go inside there. What was the offer? Like, what could you have just snatched from him?
I should have accepted it so bad before the week, but hindsight's 2020. He offered me his 2025 first.
Wow.
Offered you at first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it was one pick, and then I think Jamal Williams.
No, it was just a pick.
Oh well.
But I mean, still, like, I mean, my main reservation for not accepting it is, I actually think Chris has got a pretty good team now, so I was kind of viewing it as a mid first probably, and the fact that I have to wait till 2025 to cash it in when I still feel like I got a team that's capable of competing. That was kind of the only reason I sort of wanted to see what JK looked like in week one. I was like, I want to see what I have here first, just kind of see how he looks running the ball. And if he doesn't play great and that offer's still on the table, then maybe I'll accept it. And but if he plays fantastic, then maybe I'll just ride it out and see it through. So I was gonna, kind of gauge week one just to, have a more educated decision, and obviously that happened. I thought the man would at least last 1 week for me. So,
Yeah.
um,
Now
you
that
know,
it works, knowing what you could have accepted.
oh, I've had offers on the table like in sleeper from 2 different teams, just in the last week. I've had a lot of serious trade discussions centered around JK. I might talk to you about him, Ty, when we got food last week or whatever. Just kind of one of the ones I had on the table with another player in the league. So it hurts even more, I think, knowing that I could have gotten unloaded of this mess and
Yeah.
dumped it onto somebody else earlier in the week. But you can't see the future. Wanted to see what I had week one, and just so happened to happen week one. So that put a sour taste in my mouth. But back to what we were saying, I was very impressed with Michael Pittman. I loved the target share he got. I loved what Richardson did and just how accurate he actually looked. I think Pittman really kind of proved to me that he's going to be fantasy viable this season and not be someone that I struggle with starting. So that was really encouraging. Madison looked decent. I liked his volume and everything like that. But overall, no one on my team really went crazy. It's just no one did awful. You know, it's kind of like my whole team. The reason I put up 105 is nobody really popped off and went crazy, but nobody had a particularly putrid week either. So just kind of a overall average performance, but the JK news kind of destroyed it all for me. So tough week.
It's the lady she be, fantasy football.
She's
Yeah.
mean. But Chris, you tempted me real hard. Wanted to accept that trade so bad, but I couldn't do it to you.
Okay, so would you say if you hadn't have been on the other side of one of those, you would have just done it right away?
Me?
No.
No, he's asking me because I was on the other side of it. Brandon accepted a trade that I had active with him for Alexander Madison as soon as he got named the starter, and that hurt bad. He was gracious and gave him back to me, just kind of reversed it. But yeah, I mean, I still don't know if I would have, just because I mean it would have been a cold move. Like I know that technically I wouldn't be breaking any rules, but I know good and well that Chris would not offer that,
Yeah.
you know,
If he had
in
a torn Achilles.
an honest standing. So it would have felt a little slimy. You know, theoretically, like I said, it's not a rule break, um, but I wouldn't have felt like in good conscience like I was getting that pick on the right terms. So I don't think I would have, but I mean, I definitely would have been tempted. But it definitely hurt a little bit more pulling the trigger on it, knowing what it felt like being on on the other end and seeing the pure panic, in my eyes of like, oh my gosh, like I got to get him back on my team. Like I did not send this trade, and so I think that gave me a new perspective to not want to put Chris in that same situation. And
Yeah.
Chris, just for the record, if I had done it to you, I would have given him back and just made you pay me like a third round pick or some bench player just as compensation. But
Whoa. Honestly, I forgot I'd sent it, and James texted me and was like, "Hey, just so you know, Dobbins just went down. If you sent that trade, I would like withdraw it." And I was like, "Good luck to my boy."
yeah,
Yeah. Good guy.
yeah. No, I texted James. I as soon as Dobbins went down, like first thing I did was mourn on my bed just for how awful it was for me. But then after that, I looked at my active trades just because I wanted to see. I had a few, that were discussed during the week. I was just curious if either of them were still active. And then I clicked on yours and I saw like that I could actually accept it. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't tempt me. And I was really struggling with it. But then I texted James and I was like, dude, I could theoretically dump Dobbins on Chris right now. And he didn't text me back. But I texted it to him just because James was one of the main people I talked to when Brandon did it to me with Madison. So I was kind of just texting him just to say like I could theoretically do the same thing. And so I'm assuming he probably texted you right after I sent that to him, just to
Probably.
kind of remind you. But
Man,
yeah, it was sitting there for a hot minute, but
I
I
dodged two huge bullets this week.
yeah,
Think
yeah.
about two trades with you two, and J.K. Dobbins, and thank God.
Yeah, for sure. But Ty, just going back to your team real quick, just briefly, I didn't really touch on it a whole lot. I think the main thing you had to be confident in, and I texted you about it a few times, is I watched the Ravens game, pretty much fully, and Zay Flowers looked legit. Like he looked like he's going to be a year one contributor that you can reasonably start in your flex confidently every single week. And whenever you get Jonathan Taylor back, assuming you do, then you're not really going to have to start Traylon, and you can just play JT and Zay in the flexes.
Mhm.
And I know that you were a little bit concerned going into the season that you'd have a good second flex spot there with having to bank on either Traylon or Zay. And I mean, obviously it's just week one, but assuming things continue the way they looked on Sunday, I think you really nailed that pick and have a guy that you can confidently play.
Yeah, was definitely encouraged by him. Just seeing he was the leading receiver and had the most targets and was on the field in the two receiver sets. Like that was all really encouraging and a little bit of a surprise. So you're right. That was a good silver lining. I mean, he was practically the highest scorer on my team. Well, he wasn't, but I had two people at 14, but like he was up there, So good looks all around there. Let's whip around to some of these other ones because we should touch on these other teams. We
Yeah, 100%.
be quick as we do it though. How about
Yes.
the Kamish versus Mitri there? In a 91 to 71 point game.
Yeah, not a super explosive week from either of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitri just awful luck with his running backs. Like he had to start Izzy Abanikanda, who I'm pretty sure was a healthy scratch. Like because he literally did not have anyone else, I guess. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch. Devon A-Chain was a healthy scratch.
He had nobody else.
He had no other option, I guess. So he just
Well,
threw in
you
there.
know what he could have done is he could have moved Algier into his RB2 spot and then played like Zay Jones or something in the flex.
He certainly could have. So I think James skidded by on a rather lackluster week for him because really McCaffrey gave him 24 and had an amazing game, and other than that, he really had pedestrian performances from a lot of people. So it definitely was one he could have been got on. But yeah, Mitri's team just was beat up a little bit there, the running back spot.
Yeah, and Mitri was competing for like a while into the 425 games, and I was like, this could actually be really close if Dak has a good game on Sunday night. And then Dak laid up 6 points, and I was like, yep, this is over. But what you got, Chris? You got any comments on the commish versus Mitri?
Yeah, I think even though Mitri only put up 71, I think Jameer Gibbs is a great pick, and
Mm-hmm.
he looked really good Thursday for like the touches he did get. So I think that it'll be more of a split backfield more than it even was on Thursday, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll see a lot more of him. So I think he'll get more touches. But I mean Goddard, ass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't
Prescott,
do
he
anything.
didn't really get a shot because when he came, like his first drive into the game, they were already up 14-0.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a decent quarterback. He'll put up numbers. So if I was Mitri, I wouldn't worry about that too much. And then like Kirk Cousins, he's always going to get you about 14 to 16. The two fumbles lost really hurt him there, but Christian McCaffrey's a stud. So I think James will be all right moving forward. He's got some pieces that he just needs to work out, like who to start and where. But overall, good for James. It sucks that Mitri just didn't make that adjustment to put someone else in the flex.
Yeah, because he could have really made it a much more competitive game there. Like you said, Matt, with Zay Jones in his flex and Algier in his RB2. But I think that, if you're Mitri, you got to be encouraged by Addison getting in the end zone in his first game. And you also really got to be encouraged by Algier, who maintained quite a hefty workload despite the Bijan Robinson pick and actually out touched him, or out carried him. He had more carries. So there's some certainly silver linings there for Mitri.
Yeah. And then on the other end, I think the main thing that if I was James, I would be a little bit concerned about. Terry McLaurin will be fine. I just had a bad week. It happens. Devontae Adams will be fine. But I think the main guy he has in his lineup that I think kind of worries me a little bit is Christian Kirk. Kirk only had 60% of the snaps in the game on Sunday, and he was almost all in the slot. They were really, whenever they did two wide receiver sets, they were lining up Calvin and Zay Jones for almost all of those two wide receiver sets and just kind of pushing Kirk to the slot. And he was invisible. I mean, he was not on the field much. He only got 3 targets. And this was a guy that, James leaned on pretty heavily last year to be a consistent starter and was honestly one of his best players. And if Kirk kind of becomes an afterthought with Calvin Ridley taking all of that workload, then that's puts his lineup at a little bit more of a risk. So I think that's something that was kind of a bad warning sign for sure.
We should probably jump over to another one here and let's talk about Marcus and Austin. Marcus pulls out a 98 to 85 victory over Austin, who also was very active this week with trades. Things that initially just stood out to me in this game. Obviously, Austin Eckler had a great performance. Unfortunately, mine gotten a little banged up. He might be dealing with an ankle, but he's the same old guy. Justin Jefferson, same old guy. Lamar Jackson, a little bit of a slow start, but that was week one can be weird there. And the same for Lockett. So you wonder, you wonder when the pendulum will swing back on those. But I think if you're Marcus, you got to be happy with what you got from your two studs in Eckler and Jefferson. And then with Austin, man, I think the top thing that jumps out to me is Anthony Richardson looks like a player. And I think that's going to be, might make it a tough decision between Herbert and Richardson moving forward because they're both some studs and performed like it. So we'll be interested to see move Najee Harris to you, Chris. I guess we can maybe share just a little bit about your insight and what you were going for with that move.
I just like Najee better than Montgomery.
That's that simple.
That was it. And I've been trying to get Najee for a few years now.
Oh wow.
Since after the draft, I've reached out to him multiple times, like the first draft we had, and he always said no. And apparently the only way to trade with him is to do it in person.
Mm-hmm.
So this past
It
weekend,
really is.
yeah, this past weekend at Jordan's wedding, I took advantage. We were having dinner, and I was like, listen, man, give me Najee. I don't care what it takes. And at first, it was originally 2 first, and Williams. No, 2 first, a second Williams. And I was like, that's too much for me. I can do a second, 2 seconds, and I'll do Montgomery. And he said if I could do it first, I'll send it. I was like, whatever, I want him. So, and I had plenty of picks to spare.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I understand what you're going for there, and I like that you knew when to strike and take advantage of your opportunity.
Yeah,
Get him
Jordan, robbed him blind.
put a couple drinks in him first, I guess, or something at a wedding. You know?
No. When we did the original, like we agreed on it, he just didn't have service. We were sober.
Yeah. Good. That's the best way to usually do business.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I thought it was a good trade, man. You had what were you saying?
Jordan, man, gave me Aaron Jones.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention that one either. That was a fantastic trade, by the way, Chris. At least I think. I mean, you have a lot of second round picks. You gave up one of them. I mean, I guess I understand it from his perspective. It could be an early second, but still, like the way Aaron Jones looked this week and what he's done prior seasons, I think you got a very, very quality starter for overall a pretty cheap price.
I agree, especially considering what you got Najee for. I mean, Aaron Jones I know Najee's younger, but Aaron Jones could have a much better season than Najee, and you gave up less to get Jones, arguably. So that's
Yeah, well, I had to listen to your guys' advice. You said that I was slacking in running backs and quarterback. And me personally, I was like, Russell Wilson could be great with the new system he's in. And Gino, he's okay. Like, he's just a good fill-in. So I was like, I got to fix one or the other. And I was like, I'm just going to fix my running backs. And that's what I focused on.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be better than 10 overall.
Well done.
Yeah, no, we have high hopes for you, Chris. There is no toilet bowl in your future.
Well, it'll be easy. You don't say that. Take that back.
Okay. Hey, I'm not Jake. I mean, I don't think I'm as bad of a jinx, but
We should move on and try and get a couple more in here. Speaking of Jordan, traded Aaron Jones, he also got a win over Lucas, 111-98.
Upset.
Sure. I mean, I think he just got some major surprise performances from not Brandon Ayuk because we know he's a good player, but he hung 28, and then Jacoby Myers, that one's a surprise to hang 24. I mean, this is a lineup that had Evan Hull starting in the flex. And
Yeah.
111.
Evan Hull's on IR?
He got hurt, yeah. And Josh Allen only put up 9 points. So for him to pull out a win like this is pretty impressive. And Lucas had some pretty big disappointments. None more. Well, I guess not. I'm looking at the lineup. There's some disappointments, but the biggest one is definitely Drake London, who went only targeted once and goose-egged. That is pretty tough and just leaves more questions than any answers there. With
very, very perplexing.
Yeah.
I think the biggest disappointment, though, for Lucas, even though that Drake London one was painful, I think was losing Aaron Rodgers last night. No, he doesn't even have Aaron Rodgers. You do, but I think the impact that's going to have on Garrett Wilson. Um, Anytime we saw Garrett Wilson play with any quarterback not named Zach Wilson last year, he went off. Anytime he played with Zach Wilson, he did nothing. So I know he caught a touchdown last night with Zach Wilson, but he still didn't look super, super great, I guess, compared to the expectation before the touchdown. So I think there's definitely a lot more limit to his upside for this year. But that's all we'll say for that one because we are running a little low on time. All
It hit Jake and Brandon here.
right. I mean, not a whole lot to say other than Calvin Ridley is that dude. You called it a week or two ago, Ty. You said everything Brandon touches turns to gold. So I'm probably gonna eat my words and stuff about my things I say. And I think we might have another Allen and Diggs with Lawrence and Ridley. I know it's just week one, but man, they looked dynamic together.
I mean, the Jaguars played a good game, so did Brandon. Like Lawrence had a good game, ETN had a great game, Ridley had a great game. Their defense played really well, and Ingram had a solid game too. So I mean, it's what you're going to get whenever that's the case. So um, was a nice tip, vintage Brandon win. Like he just had guys deep lineup and had guys that exploded and got it done. I think Jake just kind of had the opposite there with Antonio Gibson putting up 0.4 and Daniel Jones 4.45 or 4.6, you know?
Yeah, rough week for Daniel Jones. But I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
Daniel Jones got beat up.
overall a clunker week for Jake, but he got least efficient manager. Hey, great solid week for his taxi squad though. 17.4 points from Kyron Williams and 7.8 points from Trey Palmer. It's better than almost all of his starters. So
Well, you gotta be excited if you have Kyron Williams though, because of the workload he got. So I think there's something to hold on to there. And also with Michael Thomas, like he got through a game without being injured. I think that counts for
Yeah, he did. That was good on him.
something.
wish I could say the same about J.K. Dobbins.
Oh. Well, that kind of is the whip around, I guess, of week one. Give us one word to describe how you're feeling going into week two. We'll start with you, Chris.
Who do I play? I think I play Marcus next week or this week coming up. Let me see. Hold on. Optimistic, but he promised me that he was going to kick my ass, and we'll see. I
That's a
think
good,
it's what's up.
that's a good word.
Optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a pretty good. He definitely has the better running backs, in my opinion, especially if he's going to start Brees Hall. With Austin Eckler and Brees Hall is a good running back duo, and then you get Justin Jefferson, so Diggs is going to have a standout game. But Lamar can be hit or miss, and he's playing a better defense than he played last week. So
Yeah.